Okay, ladies and gentlemen, picture this. You're playing a board game, but right before your turn, your opponent gets to redraw the entire board to make sure they win. Sounds unfair, right? Well, welcome to gerrymandering, the political equivalent of changing the rules mid-game, except it's been happening in American politics for over 200 years. So what exactly is gerrymandering? It's when politicians manipulate electoral district boundaries to give their party an unfair advantage. Think of it like this. Instead of voters choosing their politicians get to choose their voters. It's democracy, but backwards. The name itself comes from a pretty hilarious origin story. Back in 1812, Massachusetts, Governor Elbridge Gerry, and yes, his name rhymes with scary, which is oddly appropriate, signed off on some redistricting that created such a weirdly shaped district that it looked like a salamander. A newspaper cartoonist thought this was ridiculous and dubbed it the Gerrymander. The name stuck, and frankly, it's probably the most entertaining thing about this whole mess. Now you might be wondering, wait, don't we redraw districts regularly anyway? And you'd be right. Every 10 years after the census, we do something called redistricting. This is totally normal and necessary. Population shift, people move, cities grow, and we need to make sure everyone's vote counts equally. It's like updating your GPS when new roads get built. But here's where things get sneaky. Gerrymandering happens when politicians take this legitimate process and twist it like a pretzel to benefit themselves. They use two main tricks that sound like they came from a spy novel: packing and cracking. Packing is when you cram as many opposing voters as possible into just a few districts. Imagine stuffing all the people who don't like pizza into one tiny room so they can only complain loudly in that one space while everyone else gets to enjoy pizza in peace across multiple rooms. Cracking is the opposite. You split up groups of like-minded voters across many different districts so they can never form a majority anywhere. It's like taking a chocolate chip cookie and spreading those chips so thin across multiple cookies that none of them taste chocolatey anymore. The results can be absolutely bonkers. In Pennsylvania, Republicans once controlled 13 out of 18 congressional seats, even when Democrats won the majority of votes statewide. In Wisconsin, Democrats won every statewide office in 2018 and got the most votes overall, but only secured 36 out of 99 state assembly seats. It's like losing a basketball game 85-76, but somehow the other team gets declared the winner because their points were distributed more strategically. And you notice which parties got the shaft on both scenarios? Something to think about. Modern technology has turned gerrymandering into something that would make NASA engineers proud and a democracy advocate weep. 20 years ago, computers could generate a few hundred possible district maps. Today, they can create tens of thousands in the same time. Politicians now have access to software that knows not just where you live, but probably what you had for breakfast and how that influences your voting pattern. Okay, maybe not the breakfast part, but you guys get the idea. This technological precision has made gerrymandering so effective that over 90% of congressional and state districts are now considered safe, meaning the outcome is basically predetermined. It's like watching a movie where you already know the ending, except the ending determines who represents you in government. The legal battles around gerrymandering read like a greatest hits album of Supreme Court cases with names that sound like law firm partnerships. We've got Baker versus Carr, Gray versus Sanders, and the recent blockbuster, Rucho versus Common Cause. And that last one from 2019, the Supreme Court essentially said, you know what? Partisan gerrymandering is a political problem, not a legal one. Not a legal one. Good luck figuring it out yourselves. Bye-bye. The decision was like a referee in a football game saying, you know what? I'm not going to call any more penalties for unsportsmanlike conduct. Just work it out amongst yourselves. That's what people say happens all the time when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Spoiler alert, it didn't lead to more sportsmanlike conduct. But here's where it gets really concerning. Communities of color often bear the heaviest burden of gerrymandering due to residential patterns and voting preferences. It's unfortunately very effective to target those communities for packing and cracking. And after that 2019 Supreme Court decision, some states have basically said, oh, we're not targeting people because of their race, we're targeting them because of how they vote. It's like saying you're not picking on someone for wearing glasses, you're picking on them for having poor eyesight. Very similar. They look at black people, their culture, the people they typically vote for, which tends to lean Democrat, and the issues they typically care for, which tends to lean helping the poor class, and go like, we're going to make your vote and your representation as worthless as possible. Now, before you start thinking that this is just one party's problem, let me be clear. Both major parties have played this game when they've had the chance. It's like that friend who always cheats at Monopoly but swears they'd never cheat on any other game. The temptation is just too strong when the stakes are this high. So what can we do about it? Well, some states have tried something radical, taking the crayon away from the politicians altogether. They've created independent redistricting commissions, groups of citizens who aren't politicians and whose job is to draw fair maps. California tried this and saw their competitive districts nearly triple. Michigan had a grassroots activist named Katie Fahey who basically said, this is ridiculous, gathered 400,000 signatures and got an independent commission approved by voters. The evidence is pretty clear. When you let independent groups draw the maps instead of politicians, you get more competitive elections and districts that actually make geographic sense instead of looking like abstract art projects. Right now, according to experts, 35 states are at extreme or high risk of partisan gerrymandering, affecting 188 million Americans. That's more than half the country living in places where politicians get to essentially rig their own elections. It's like letting students grade their own tests. The results are predictably problematic. And we're seeing it manifest time and time again. The most comprehensive solution on the table is federal legislation like the Freedom to Vote Act, which would ban partisan gerrymandering for congressional districts nationwide. But until something like that passes, it's ready up to states and citizens to demand fair maps. But wait, there's more. Just when you thought this story couldn't get any more dramatic, we have some breaking news regarding gerrymandering. Right now, as we speak, Texas is gearing up for what's being called mid-decade redistricting. They recognize all the problems they've been having because especially the Epstein stuff, but also the stuff regarding immigration and Iran. And Texas is doing their best effort to try to get more seats, preparing for the midterm election, which more than likely they will lose out because of all the terrible Donald Trump policies. Well, that's just my opinion at the very least. So when it comes to Texas, Trump's goal is to net 5 additional GOP seats, which would give Republicans control of nearly 80% of Texas's congressional districts in a state where the Democratic presidential nominee captured 42% of the vote last year. It's like saying, sure, you got 42% of the vote, but we think 20% representation is plenty for you. The Trump administration's Department of Justice has given Texas a legal justification for this strategy, warning that 4 majority-minority congressional districts in the Houston and Fort Worth areas are unconstitutionally racially gerrymandered. This is particularly ironic because Texas has spent years defending these very same districts, but now they're suddenly concerned about fairness? Coincidentally, right when it would help them gain more seats? Yeah, very shady. Now, as a response over in California, Governor Gavin Newsom is basically saying, 2 can play at that game. California lawmakers are grappling with Governor Newsom's bold proposal to scrap the state's independent redistricting system in favor of a partisan power play. California had one of the most respected independent redistricting commissions in the country since 2010. But as he looks at Texas and goes like, you know what? I'm tired of you guys trying to ruin the country, trying to cheat your way to more seats. We've been the fair state for way too long. Let's play hardball. We're going to make sure we get more Democratic seats. We ain't going to let you do whatever you want anymore. Is this sentiment from the left regarding Newsom's ideas? There's other people who believe that he shouldn't go this far. We're just, playing their game. But I'm be honest, my personal opinion is it's time to expose the Republicans and MAGA in particular on what they're doing. The bottom line is this. Gerrymandering turns democracy into a shell game where the House always wins. When politicians get to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their politicians, we all lose. But by listening to this podcast or watching the video, if a video gets made from this, you get to learn what exactly is gerrymandering, and it's very simple. Don't let these politicians dictate who should represent them. Put pressure on them. Call your officials, call your state houses, call your mayors. Make your voices heard that you're tired of these partisan gerrymandering from both the Democrats and the Republicans. Every state, to be honest, should have an independent redistricting process. No more. The government should be representing the people, not the other way around. But of course, let me know what you guys think about gerrymandering. I'll be love to hear more about it. Feel free to contact me and maybe we can discuss it on the podcast.